for child's pose for knee issues, right? So I'm just doing the very simplest setup of a supported child's pose. So the bolster goes in between the knees and coming forward. But of course, I've got a knee injury, so this isn't gonna work for me. All right, my dears, so we shall start our restorative flow, our physical postures, with child's pose, right? Supported child's pose. So don't go there yet. What are y'all getting in the pose for? I changed my other mind. I think I want to talk about it first and then get you guys into it. And we'll play fast and loose with your time here. But yeah, let's talk just a teeny bit about it first. Right? So supported child's pose. What it's meant for, right, is it stretches lower back. So we talked about that. We don't want a huge stretch in the low back. But it indeed, just by the nature of it, will give you a good stretch in the back. It relieves shoulder tension. Okay, during this posture, you'll hear me remind you to let your shoulders drift towards the floor, because a lot of us will lay there in child's pose with the shoulders back, because that's what I tell you in back bends what to do, not in forward folds. All right, this quiets the mind. So your head will be a little bit lower, right, and kind of downward facing, preferably to quiet the mind, right? So when you wouldn't want to do this one, chronic back conditions included, but not limited to, spondylolisthesis and spondylolysis. Sorry, not making fun. I can't pronounce them very well. Spinal stenosis, disc disease, nerve systems, in other words, radiating pain, right? And difficulties with bowel or bladder function, and more than 3 months pregnant, right? You wouldn't want to do this. So I didn't get a chance to walk around and check in with you guys on injuries, which is something I would really do in a public class. I walk around and I try to check in with my students. So if you have any of these conditions, don't feel like you gotta volunteer in front of the whole world. Although I have a feeling you guys have spent off a lot of time together, you're probably pretty comfortable. But if you have any of those injuries or conditions, please do not go into this posture. Let me know and I will think of another one for you. What are those? The ones that I couldn't pronounce, right? So there's, I call them the spondies because I can pronounce that.
Couldn't they have been a little more creative and not have them all so close?
And there's 3 of them, right? Yeah. So I mentioned 2 spondies here. But there is one that is in the neck, and I don't have it here, but it begins with spondy, and it's where the your nerves get thank you compressed by the vertebra in your neck. So that's one. Okay, another one is typically a 5 or 6 lumbar, and it's a fracture of the vertebra, which leads to the third one, which could be the slippage of the vertebra off the sacroiliac. So at the low back, it can be the slippage that comes all the way off. So it affects the nerves. It's a broken bone, and it can be a complete disconnect. So you could probably see how those might be really aggravated by yoga, but there's good yoga for it too.
Yeah, just to be clear, spondylolisthesis.
Thank you.
They will grade, and if someone's really bad, they're getting a fusion. So you probably won't see that so much in your class. Spondylosis is a fancy word for osteoarthritis. It's just the locale, just like spinal stenosis. And then the spondylolisthesis, seriously, could they have gotten a little bit different? That it's either caused by a fracture or a birth defect, and that the shape of the vertebral body doesn't hold in straight, and that can cause the spondylolisthesis. I've had people in classes who have spondylolisthesis, and it can be managed by strengthening around the vertebral bodies.
Yeah.
And I had one woman with a retrolisthesis where it was going back, and I told her mother run to the surgery because paralysis is an issue because
Yes.
the spinal cord can get compressed.
Mhm.
Typically, if they're coming to restorative yoga, they know how to handle it.
Do you find, Justine, that's a good point to bring up, that your students typically know these conditions if they have one? If you mention it, if you have these, don't do it, they know that they have it. Like they,
Typically, yeah.
yeah. Does that make sense? Like you're like, how would they know? Well, they know. They've been to the doctor. It's painful. Sometimes it's not. I mean,
someone can have severe spinal stenosis and zero symptoms.
yeah.
And someone can have mild, and they can hardly walk. It's weird.
Yeah. So I will bring that up. I gave Justine a heads up. I'm like, that will come up in class. They will ask.
The record I reviewed just to make sure.
Me too. I'm like reading. I'm like, all right, I got to practice. And I'm glad you pronounced it out loud because I keep doing the TH as a
Just go spondyl.
and I says, thank you. And again, not to make light, but I find my mouth just doesn't wrap around those words. And I will give you guys a list of ones that you can do. Okay, in the confines of your class. Yes.
Do you ever have anybody in supported child's pose who can't do it because of their needs?
Yes, another one.
Oh, I'm sorry. I jumped
Yeah,
ahead.
no, you didn't. That's beautiful. That is the very next thing. And Sherry gave me a heads up on that one. And I'm like, absolutely, because I get it all the time. Now, do I have a knee injury in class that I could possibly demonstrate with when we get to it? Yay, no knee injuries. All right, I will fake one. Right? So a couple of ways to accommodate for the knees. Right now, for the spinal conditions, the contraindications, you're going to find another pose to do. Right? You're just going to move away from this one for those back conditions. There's standing versions of a forward fold that you'll teach those people, but we'll get to that. For child's pose, for knee issues, right? So I'm just doing the very simplest setup of a supported child's pose. So the bolster goes in between the knees and coming forward. But of course, I've got a knee injury, so this isn't going to work for me. One thing that will work is this my right knee, right? And I'm going to place a eye pillow snug behind my knee. So I'm going to tuck it right up behind and pull it nice and tight. So creates a little space there behind the knee, and then I can comfortably come forward. Now that's going to work for some people. Okay, if you have hand towels in your studio or a scarf, your beautiful Om scarf, you can let your students borrow, or their jacket or anything, or even a blanket. Right? So if I use a blanket, I'll typically put it behind both knees just because it's a bigger prop. And you snug that blanket right behind the knees. And again, then you've got space behind both knees and you can come forward. So that's 2. Those both make sense. 3 is you let your student keep their fanny up in the air, like in puppy pose, right? So the bottom is up in the air. 4 is 2 props together. May I have your vintage prop, please? Vintage Vista, right? And they are going to come into child's pose with legs straight. Oh, everybody's all right. That's a good one, right? So that's the knees. Yes, my darling.
I have a really great one that a student taught me because she has patella injuries.
Mm-hmm.
She takes 2 blankets and folds them to the appropriate thickness and then puts it from below her knee through the top of her foot. So she's got one on each side so her knee does not touch the mat.
Yeah, because she's got the front knee injury.
Can't touch the knees are too sensitive. And she can stay in child's pose for days.
Yes. So, and
Takes the blanket and just, let's just say like so. Like so. And
Yep.
then,
okay,
so
it's like a motorcycle. Yep, off the ground. Yeah, because quite frequently you'll have your students set up with a blanket this way too. So underneath the knees in your Tadasana fold as cushion. And I like the elevated knees. I learn something every time I teach this, I swear, right? So she had set up, for those of you that didn't get an angle of the back of the room, with the knees off the prop, elevated, and then forward. And you can also set up for cushion here. But gosh, from the reaction of the crowd, we need more bolsters. You guys want the relaxing version, right? So let's go ahead and get set up.